Good morning, Ultrahumans. I am Rachel, and welcome back to the Ultrahuman channel. And today I have one thought for you. I, was thinking about this while I was meditating, and it's how we're all killing ourselves with this forward head carriage. Now, I don't know if I shared this story exactly on this channel, but a few years ago when my daughter was born, a couple years ago, I started to experience what I attributed to a thyroid problem. I had low energy, I was irritable. It wasn't exactly postpartum depression. It seemed to have a lot of those symptoms, but also my face was puffy. There was just a lot of other things. If you look up the common symptoms of Hashimoto's, that's what it sounded like. And this was very scary to me because the only way that the medical system really treats Hashimoto's is to give you a bunch of tests, not many of which are reliable, and then give you a synthetic thyroid hormone, which is just a Russian roulette of if you're going to completely wreck yourself on that. Some people go that route and everything works out fine for them. Some people do not have that experience. But I decided I was going to go to the extreme, whatever way I could try out before going to taking a synthetic thyroid hormone. And thank God I found out about chiropractic. And what I found, Dr. John Bergman, who I will leave a link for in the description, he is a chiropractor in Huntington Beach, California. He does YouTube videos in the form of live classes for the folks who attend his clinic. And I believe, I will find the exact video that I watched, but I believe it was called the real cause of bipolar and depression. And when you see a title like that, I typically have come to dismiss a lot of times titles that are like, this is the reason that blah 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 blah. But very quickly he was introducing medical journals and scientific literature. He was speaking in a language I could understand, having done the amount of research on physiology and anatomy that I have. So I was very excited because this was finally somebody saying who you didn't need medication to deal with these symptoms. This is the problem. This is how you fix it. And the problem was when your posture is off, there are a lot more parts to it than that. And your nervous system is encased in bone, your spinal cord, and when there is a problem within that, where the discs have been subluxations, or what the chiropractic community refer to it as, less light sublux, when there's a pinch, only about 10% of those nerves are actually sending a pain response back to your brain. Now the other 90% of those nerves, if they're pinched, they're still sending a signal to your brain to let your brain know that there's a problem. You just can't feel it. So if you're like me, or like I was, 25 years old, I didn't have neck pain and I didn't have back pain. But when I went into the chiropractor and had my x-rays taken, I had not only forward head carriage, which I think you will all recognize in yourself or everyone around you, because these days we're always looking down at our phone, and that puts a lot of stress on these ligaments and muscles on the back of your neck, to the point where it can actually cause them to be pulled, rounding your shoulders, all kinds of things. So that's just one thing. I had a reverse curve in my neck, meaning your neck, you're supposed to be sitting on top of this beautiful arch that helps balance like a spring, this big heavy head we have on top of it. Instead, my head was sitting on something more like, there was a crook in it, like that. So I see this on the x-ray, I recognized it from the videos I'd been watching, and I was like, oh my god, there's the problem. And it took about 6 weeks of going to the chiropractor for almost all of my symptoms to be gone. I didn't experience anything like what that winter was like the next winter, and I totally acknowledge that I had just had a baby in the previous August, and there were a lot of factors, but I knew personally from having gone through that the difference it made from, the year before and the year before that. Before my daughter was born, I was experiencing PMS symptoms so severely it was crippling. And I didn't know what to do because I don't want to take a mind-altering medication that would be something I'd either have to be taking an anxiety medication for the panic attacks that were happening only during the time of my period, or I'd have to be on a hormonal birth control all the time to avoid having a period. I've done those things. They don't work well for me, and I didn't want to do them again. So I toughed it out, and that was one of the reliefs of being pregnant again, is not having, and it was only about 3 days. It was the 3 days right before my period would start. And that is another thing that is typical of a thyroid disorder. So that went away too after having my neck dealt with. Now, because, as I've talked about on this channel and my other channel, I am poor, or I am now, I could not afford, after those initial 6 weeks, to keep going the way you're really supposed to the chiropractor. And so I have had to find a few ways of dealing with this at home. So I am going to probably wrap up this video right here because I feel like I shared a personal story and it's gone on for kind of a while. And in my next video, I am going to share a few tips that I have used at home to deal with posture without having to pay someone to help you with that. My number one recommendation really is go to a chiropractor and do the exercises that they're going to give you. If you can't afford that, which a chiropractor is actually less expensive than a regular doctor, but if you can't afford that, here are some things you can do at home.